Hello everyone. We would like to share why we chose Philippine Airlines on our recent trip to Bangkok and how our flight experience was. Please note we bought our ticket. We characterize ourselves as practical DIY travelers. For few-hour flights, we prefer to not spend much on plane tickets and allocate more on food, activities, and transportation expense during our stay in a country. Also, we used to book months in advance, so we normally book with Cebu Pacific and avail their seat sale fares. And to save money, we normally don't include in-flight meals and just buy at the airport. Since the pandemic happened and with the unpredictability of work schedule, we tend to book our trips just between 1 week to 2 months ahead. Booking promo fares, then ending up rebooking later on sometimes ends up costing more. By the way, Cebu Pacific's claim in their GoFlexi option that you can cancel for free if your plans change is so not true. We paid a fee when we canceled our return flight from Boracay last July 2022. Now we booked our Bangkok trip this September 2023 just 1 week in advance. Why did we choose Philippine Airlines? Because Cebu Pacific and AirAsia tickets were more expensive, plugging in check-in baggage, seat election, and food add-ons. Also, to be totally honest, we're getting tired of the uncomfortable seats of Cebu Pacific and the lack of discipline and discretion of a lot of Cebu Pacific passengers, especially when it comes to plane disembarking behavior and violating the hand carry allowance. Sadly, the airline staff isn't strict in implementing the hand carry policy but is so strict with the unreasonable one-piece policy for check-in baggage. Even AirAsia and Jetstar allow more than one piece as long as the combined weight is within the weight allowance you purchased. We are annoyed with people having too many or too overweight hand carry items, not because we're stickler for rules but because we hate inconveniencing other people. We often see passengers losing space on the bin above them because some passengers have filled it with more than one bag and ending up having to put their bags so far, making it more difficult for them when getting off the plane. Also, some bags weigh more than 7 kilos, they can't even lift it up. Then they end up bothering other passengers to carry it for them. My companion almost hurt his back when a lady asked him to lift a bag that he said would easily weigh 20 kilos. Have you had similar experiences with Cebu Pacific? Through the years, instead of improving their system, our experiences got worse with them, yet they're not always cheaper anymore, sometimes even more expensive, especially for near-date trips. Also, a lot of their cheaper flights arrive at a country at ungodly hours that you end up spending more for taxi to the city and an extra hotel night. With AirAsia, we're turned off by their 1,300 or 1,400 pesos booking fee for our ticket to Japan last July 2023. That's why we chose Philippine Airlines for our trip to Bangkok. You may think we shouldn't compare CebPac with PAL because it's a low-cost carrier. We reiterate that this is specifically about booking a flight to Bangkok, and the premise is when we booked 1 week before our departure, the ticket price of CebPac was actually more expensive than PAL, so we could compare what they have to offer. Even as of today, if we try to book a flight 2 weeks from now with the same days we booked, including the same add-ons of check-in luggage, seat selection, and in-flight meals, CebPac's fare would be more expensive even when we choose the ungodly hour flights. Sorry if the first few minutes sounded like a rant. Well, yes, maybe it was. We guess we couldn't help but compare. Given the premise of ticket prices, the disparity in experience was just too glaring. If you've also been flying with CebPac, you may judge for yourself. Now, how was our flight with PAL? Going to Bangkok, boarding was on time, kudos to the airport too. And boarding the plane, they boarded the business class in priority passengers first. Then they called by seat cluster or group as indicated on our boarding pass, which is from the back of the plane going to the front. Anyone not yet called was asked to wait for their turn. So passengers were able to get in and settle themselves down quick enough. That's what you call being organized and systematic. Having mentioned about hand carry bags earlier, it's interesting to see how much vacant space was left in the overhead bins considering the number of passengers on our flight. I guess that's what happens when you have 30-kilogram check-in baggage allowance. We didn't suffer much during the 3.5-hour flight. Having back problems like us, we found the seats more comfortable and the headrest was adjustable. Someone with spine problem having a pillow I can put on my back is a big plus. However, the leg room was similarly tight. But at least the back of the seat is not that thin that you'd really feel whenever the knee of the person behind you hits it. Comes the included in-flight meals. For economy, we were asked to choose between beef rendang and fish fillet. To try both, we had one of each, and both were really good. Beef rendang was tender and tasty, and the fish fillet was flaky and creamy. The meal comes with really good coleslaw for side dish, bread roll with butter, and dried mango for dessert. For drinks, choices include water, red or white wine, soft drinks, beer, apple, or orange juice. And drinks are refillable. This served as our dinner, and we felt full even without eating the bread. We bought Air Asia and flight meals on another trip this year. Thinking it will be enough, we didn't get anything else at the airport anymore, and we regret it. The meal was so small we were still hungry, and the tiny bottle of water couldn't even compensate for it. Good thing we didn't get it for the return flight. We don't know if CebPac's meal would be as small, but for 320 pesos we wouldn't want to take the risk. Our nice meal was capped with a cup of coffee. While we had coffee, some chose more refills of wine. Well, why not? We didn't really get to sleep the whole trip, but it was a generally steady flight, though there were patches of rain clouds and some thunderstorm nearby. However, there was an instance when the seatbelt sign was on for a really long time with no announcement of turbulence, so we didn't know if we can go to the bathroom or not. There was no turbulence the whole time. We were wondering if the pilot just forgot to turn it off. Also, there were only 2 toilets for the whole economy section at the back of the plane. Better line up before the need gets urgent. With the drink refills people had, do the math. We landed in Bangkok pretty much on time. In disembarking the plane, the typical system in PAL flights is the passengers disembark by row from front to back. We've observed this even in domestic flights and in getting off their shuttle buses, which actually makes total sense. You can just sit comfortably while waiting for your turn instead of having to wrestle your way out because of those people from the back hurrying to get out first. What those people don't realize is it even takes longer to get off the plane because it's harder to get your stuff from the bins and move forward when the aisle is all jammed with people and their bags fighting their way out. Some even get hit by others' bags as people struggle to make their way out. There are even some incidents of friction or conflict between passengers because of lack of order. We are all getting off the plane. It doesn't have to be a race. Especially for international flights, chances are you have checked in luggages. What's the use of getting out first when you will just end up waiting by the carousel for your luggages together with the other passengers you overtook at the plane? Does getting there first make your luggage come out first as well? Typical PAL as well as Air Swift passengers behave the way they do because the airline established that system, and repeat passengers have been practicing it. All airlines should implement it too. It's so easy to do, and it doesn't even require investing in additional equipment. It doesn't take much to be more patient and orderly. Having said that, in this flight, we observed some passengers behaved quote-unquote excited to get off the plane and attempted to get ahead, but at least they didn't push their way out while the other rows were getting off. Also, prior to landing, they announced about passengers disembarking per group as they call it out because they want to prioritize those with connecting flights and then deplane by row. Unfortunately, it didn't happen and just let the passengers deplane after they opened the door, not sure why. The return flight got a bit delayed, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise for us because it took long for us to get through immigration. We shared the reason at our post about what to do when you lose your passport. For the return flight, upon entering the boarding gate area, an airline personnel already checks the passport and boarding pass. So upon boarding, it's faster since they only have to scan the boarding pass. Same procedure of boarding was followed, which is by group or row numbers. Some attempted to board before their turn but weren't allowed. It's either they weren't paying attention to the announcement or just couldn't wait for their turn. Anyway, good job to the staff for not tolerating it. Proper implementation is really the key. Since it's a late-night flight, passengers were provided blankets too. Though we didn't get to use it, it was a nice touch. We already had a long, tiring day but just had a light dinner, so we still had our meal while majority of the passengers chose to skip it and sleep. Choices were chicken with noodles and steamed fish, and we chose one of each again. They were okay, but we liked the outbound meals a lot more. We don't know what the side dish was called, but it's cold glass noodles with like sweet dressing, and we liked it. Dessert this time was a piece of pound cake, and it's really good. There's the usual bread and butter that we didn't get to eat again, so we just brought them home. Same selection for drinks. We had soft drinks. When we requested for a refill, they gave us a whole can. We didn't have coffee anymore, so we can sleep through the rest of the flight. In general, the meal was quite nice. We just wonder, with that many passengers that didn't eat, Where did the extra food go? Hopefully they're given to maybe the ground crew or get donated. With all the environment and food shortage issues, we truly hope they don't just go to waste. The return flight was smooth. In terms of the quality of service, the ground and flight crew in both flights were pleasant, attentive, and generally efficient. Overall, it wasn't the best PAL flight we've had in terms of food and the consistency in implementing orderly disembarking, but it was generally a pleasant flight experience. Would we always choose Philippine Airlines over Cebu Pacific or Air Asia from now on? Well, to be honest, we'd like to, but it really depends on the difference of total flight ticket cost as well as available flight schedule in every instance. We'd definitely choose PAL if it's not more than 1,000 pesos for domestic flight and 3,000 pesos for international flight, and if the flight schedule is better. We are still practical travelers after all. We hope Cebu Pacific would improve their boarding and deplaning system, be more truthful with their add-ons, and change their luggage policies and implementation. Otherwise, if other airlines become more and more competitive with their ticket costs, more travelers may end up flying with them less and less. Since last year, we've chosen PAL in some of our flights because they're cheaper or just tiny bit more expensive, yet we had a lot better experience. In this day and age, paying a little more premium is okay if it means a lot less stress for us. To close this, if your trip is in less than 2 months, we recommend that you always check PAL's rate as well, and you might also consider them a better option. Thanks for watching.